Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report to your local police and sheriff department.
Today we'll be touching base on another 411 case. If this sort of stuff intrigues you, feel free to check out our playlist on the other missing 411 people. These cases all involve the disappearance of someone who goes missing on either public or rural land or national parks. We will uncover the disappearance of Teresa Lynn Gibson, aka Trenny.
Who is Trenny Lynn Gibson? So her date of birth is August 17th, 1960. Her parents are Hope and Robert Sr. Gibson. Her siblings are Robert Jr. and Tina. She grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. At the time, she currently worked at a cafeteria at the local Knoxville Mall. At the time of the disappearance, she was 16 years old. Parents is that she has long brown hair and green eyes. Her height is 5'3" and she weighed about 113 pounds. People noted that she had a great sense of humor. She was intelligent. Trenny attended horticulture class at Bearden Highschool. She loved nature and learning about plants. She loved it so much she hoped to attend the University of Tennessee to study landscape architecture.
On October 8th, 1973, Trenny was going on a field trip with her school counselor, Wayne Dunlap, and 39 other students. Dunlap decided he wanted to take those students to Clingman's Dome. And for those who don't know, the geography of Clingman's Dome, it's located on the North Carolina side. The Clingmans is the highest mountain in the Smoky Mountains. Also, it is a part of the Copper Hill Formation, which is estimated to be formed over 560 million years ago. The students were hiking on a trail known as Andrews Ball to Clingman's Dome. The trail was very well maintained and clearly marked, and the terrain is so well maintained that it's difficult to come off the trail and get lost. It also makes it less likely that Trenny left the trail because of this.
What happens if you do leave the trail? So it's thick, rugged, it's covered in rocks and boulders, and it's super difficult to hike in. Later in that day, the students start to split up into smaller groups rather than sticking together. She switched to multiple groups multiple times. Around 3 p.m., the students were roughly 0.5 miles away from Clingman's Dome. This was the point Trenny vanished. Obviously, when the students and Dunlap realized she was gone, the National Park Service was called.
And of course, they did some search efforts, but Trenny was wearing blue jeans, a blue blouse, a blue-white striped sweater, blue Adidas shoes, a star sapphire and diamond ring, and a burrowed brown jacket when she was missing. Immediately, a massive search was in place, but however, weather conditions did not make it favorable to search that night. So their plan was for helicopters, dogs, the whole 9 yards to search for her. And there was heavy rain, the temps were in the 30s, and it completely screwed up their plans, and the National Park Service made no efforts on the first day, and so they decided to start the search the next day. Some people believe Trenny could have ran away, however, there is a lack of evidence on why she would.
Other people who also attended the hike as well was another female teacher. Her name was Miss Coghill. She mentions at one point she was only about 200 feet from Trenny. Coghill states Trenny bent down to look at something on the ground and then wandered off the trail. Both law enforcement and National Park Services did interview both chaperones and all the students. Anita Bounds, a student, says she stopped for some reason to take a break or a rest. She kept her eyes on Trenny as Trenny moved up the trail, and when she reached down to tie her shoe, after she did that, she looked back up and Trenny was gone.
He should have still been able to see Trenny, but Trenny was nowhere in sight, and when Anita noticed this, she moved up further on the trail and saw nothing. She also looked to her right and left to see if there was any indication that Trenny had left, and of course there was nothing. Anita had a brother named Bobby, which he was also interviewed during this time. Bobby did confirm what Anita said had happened, and Bobby also confirmed what Miss Coghill said earlier about Trini bending over to look down at something and then leaving the trail.
What is even more bizarre about this case is that the group that she was last seen with, they all start to look for her. They shouted her name and they got no response. The search radius for Trini was 15 miles. The day after her disappearance, they even used the helis and dogs. 2 canines at one point did pick up Trini's scent for a few miles from the trail, but then all of a sudden they lost the scent. No other evidence of Trini leaving had been found. She obviously was not prepared.
October 11th, 2 days later, Swain County, which is a county nearby in western North Carolina, got involved in this. Commander John Maddox, who is in charge of civil air control for Swain County, got in contact with National Park Service and said he had 40 men ready to search, K-9 units, 15 pilots, 15 helis. He had everything to assist with the search. And this would absolutely be beneficial to the search since, there wasn't that many great search opportunities before. So the National Park Service actually denied his offer and said, "We don't need help. We also don't want these men because supposedly they can disturb the backcountry." And this obviously isn't the last time that this has happened with any national park.
For example, even with Dennis Martin, his father had 200 people willing to search. The National Park Service only allowed 25 men. And I will actually put a link in the description below if you guys want to check out that video as well. And then Robert Sr., aka Bob Gibson, Trini's father, begged National Park Services to use all the resources available to look for his daughter. Obviously they did. October 13th, the FBI even got involved in this case. And typically the FBI only really goes and involves themselves and investigates if they suspect that foul play could be involved. However, with this case, there wasn't really any indications indicating that foul play was involved.
The FBI did leave 2 agents behind to keep an eye on things, and even a sidekick was involved. The sidekick supposedly says, "I have seen Trini and she's on a hollow and there's a lot of acorns around." But it's a very bizarre for a sidekick to involve themselves in a missing persons case, because they typically don't.
Yeah.
The search lasted from October 8th to October 22nd, and about 300 people participated in the search, but not a single trace of Trini was found. So on April 7th, 1977, Bob Gibson went back with people to try to get more search efforts done. He was denied access.
So the first theory, which is the main theory for this case, is that she ran away, got lost, died natural causes. So both Bobby and Miss Coghill noted that Trini looked at the ground at something and then she left the trail. And they're not sure exactly what she was looking at, but after she looked at it, she headed off the trail. If Trini left the trail, the terrain would be difficult for her to navigate. Many hikers have disappeared in the Smoky Mountains regardless of their experience levels. You could be very experienced and you could still get lost in the mountains. She did not have the proper gear and cell phones, although technically they did exist at the time. It's not really something people typically would have on them. And then the night of her disappearance, rain was very heavy. The temperature was really low, so she could have very easily gotten hypothermia. Search efforts did not begin until the next day. What do you think Trini was looking at on the ground that was so cool that she decided to just walk off the trail? Maybe a plant or something?
It could have been something like shiny also. You never know what you're going to find in a national park, but it could have, obviously been something that caught her eye so much that she decided to walk off the trail to investigate.
Yeah, for sure.
That happens.
She did horticulture class and she wanted to study landscape architecture. She definitely did have an interest in plants, so it could be a plant that she didn't see before.
That's true.
And then if it did not rain on the night that she disappeared, search efforts could begin the night instead of the next day. Do you think if that was the case, the outcome could have been different if it didn't rain?
I feel like their chances of finding her would increase for sure, but as far as like the outcome and stuff, it probably would have unfortunately still been the same, because most of the time with these cases, they just kind of disappear and like nobody ever finds like any trace of them, which is so weird. But
yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I think the outcome probably unfortunately would have been the same, but it could have increased their chances of finding her.
For sure, I feel like especially in the really the first 48 hours, but preferably the first 24 hours, if you can look for someone who's missing, the chances of them being found or their chances of survival do go up. And then, do you believe that 16-year-old Trini would run away?
I mean, what 16-year-old hasn't tried to run away?
Right.
But I feel like her personally, probably not, just because she did seem like she had a good life, but you never know what goes on behind closed doors. And, you know, teenagers, especially at that age, they do go through a lot of things, like mentally and physically. Maybe she was having a tough time with things and thought that running away would solve all her problems, but I personally don't think she ran away. I feel like she was like, you know, she was on the right track to, you know, graduating high school, going to like a good college, and starting like a good career. So, but like I said, you never know.
Their problems with teenage boys and whatnot, relationships and stuff.
That is true. But into theory number 2. Some people, of course, believe that she was abducted. Some witnesses state they saw beer cans and cigarettes found in the general vicinity of where she was vanished. Robert, aka Bobby Simpson, at one point was a possible suspect. Trini would always carry her comb around with her, and her comb was found in Simpson's car. When Trini's father questioned Simpson, Simpson said that Trini asked him to hold it for her. Her sapphire pendant and ring were found in possession of another girl student at Bearden Highschool, which is fucking weird, but alright.
That is pretty weird.
And Kevin Bowman, a male student, broke into Gibson residence in October 1975, 1 year prior to her disappearance. Trini's mom shot him in the foot from trespassing. He served 6 months, then attended school again around the time Trini disappeared. Something that was very notable is that when he was sentenced in the courtroom, he threatened to hurt Trini. You're suspicious, sir. But my first question to you is, why was Trini's comb in Simpson's car? Did he have something to do with her disappearance?
It is pretty important to note that part. I myself am similar to Trini in a way where I have long hair as well, and I typically have my brush on me. Typically, she would have her comb on her, so that definitely is a little bit suspicious. He could be telling the truth because she probably wouldn't have wanted to necessarily hike with a comb. I mean, you can. But at the same time, it is something that is good that they investigated. It's really the only, evidence pointing if he could be involved. There's not really anything else besides that. Not really any, witness statements or anything. So it makes it seem less likely that he was involved and more likely that he was telling the truth.
Yeah. Could Kevin Bowman done this as part of a revenge plan against Trini? He did threaten to hurt her in the courtroom after he was caught trespassing.
So yeah, I absolutely think that they should have done more investigation into Kevin Bowman. He had the balls to go and break into her parents' house, even after getting shot in the foot, and after he was sentenced in the courtroom, he threatened to hurt her. So if he is saying things like that, then he definitely needs to be more looked into. He could be involved in her disappearance. He was attending school at the time, and they do believe that he was on the field trip as well, and so he could have been involved, and I think they should have done more to look into him.
They definitely should have. They could have done a better investigation of her. But what do you think really happened to her?
So there's really two main things that, for me, I would say. So the first thing is when she was looking at something, maybe she saw a flower or a shiny rock, and she went to look for more flowers or more of those shiny rocks, and she got off the trail and did not realize until it was too late. And she probably didn't have a GPS on her. She didn't have a cell phone or anything. So it would have made it very easy for her to get lost, have gone very far. They do say that she's pretty quick at hiking. But another part of me is like, we also should look more into that student, Calvin Bowman, because of just his history and the threats that he has made. Like, I feel like they should have been taken a lot more serious. He shouldn't have even been allowed to attend the same school as Trenny if he was going to threaten her like that. There is an off chance where some hiker with ill intentions, because I'm sure there are some creepy people out there, decide to abduct her. I mean, she was a teenage girl. She was 16 years old. Part of me also feels like she could have been abducted.
Yeah, there's no telling what could have happened to her. I feel like it seems kind of more likely that she was abducted for sure.
And I feel like if she did run away, or if like wildlife or natural causes got to her, I feel like they would have seen like a lot more evidence. And it's also kind of strange that other people had like her jewelry and stuff.
Yeah, like, why do all these people have her jewelry? That's weird.
Like, the comb is a different situation. That's a brush, whatever. But I feel like the jewelry is very, like, important, because it was, like, a blue sapphire pendant and a diamond ring. Like, diamond rings are not cheap, so.
They're expensive.
Then I'm going to read some Reddit comments for the hell of it. On this Reddit post is called "The 1976 Disappearance of Trenny Gibson Vanishes During a School Field Trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park." One of the comments by Robin Wanderer 1, he says, "This is a part of the story that blows my mind. As far as I can remember, every time I went to school field trip, parents would always have to sign permission slips. That was apparently not the case here. I think the reason Trenny borrowed Robert Simpson's jacket was because she was not adequately dressed or prepared for the trip." Another comment says from Chickamauga, "Wow, this is exactly where the woman from my area recently went missing and was found dead. She was hiking with her daughter on Forney Ridge Trail near Andrews Ball," which is where they were hiking. "And then they separated at some point and planned on meeting up at the car. She never showed, and after a week-long search was found dead. Would it surprise me if something similar happened to this girl?" So hearing that definitely makes that seem like someone could have abducted her or foul play was involved. Another group of comments say, so from Sydney, she says, "What exactly did Robert mean by went off to track a bear? Was a bear actually seen, or was he just observing its footprints / scat? Could any of the other kids confirm the presence of the bear trap?" Below that, Robin Wanderer 1 says, "Yeah, it doesn't really sound like a believable story at all. I know there was speculation that something happened between Trenny and Robert, which made her want to separate from him and make it to the parking lot as quickly as possible, which might explain why she was so determined to keep moving when the group she was hiking stopped for a rest. She was moving pretty fast." And then this last comment says, Kuma_Kolshan, "I wonder if she went off the trail to pee and then became disoriented and got lost in the forest. That might sound idiotic, but it can happen pretty easily in the foggy thickets of the Smokies, especially if she went some distance off trail for privacy, and if she called for help, the sound would have been blocked by the rugged terrain." That's also something that could have happened too while she went off trail.
Yeah, that
That would make sense.
But if Trini was still alive today, she would be 56 years old. She would probably have a degree in landscape architecture. But however, to this day, we do not know what happened to her, sadly enough. And we do hope one day her father receives the closure that he needs. Comment below what you think happened. With that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when you're going to vanish into the Smoky Mountains.